being free of fear, being free of our responsibilities. I'm not saying we are free of our duties or our work, but we don't have the attachment to them. Swami Abhedananda said, no individual soul, whether virtuous or sinful, rich or poor, can ever become truly sinless and happy without coming into the state of God consciousness. You may cry for help and pray for forgiveness day after day.
Swamiji, sound will be more. Sound.
Oh, but rest assured that I think I have to come a little closer then.
Increase their volume.
They increase their volume. Okay, thank you.
Please increase your volume because it's maximum here.
Okay. But rest assured that he who will forgive your sins is your own self. You may call that divine nature God, Buddha, Christ, Allah. It's all the same. By the help of Vedanta, we can become free from all bondages, gain spiritual enlightenment, and attain perfection in this life. Understanding these teachings helps us to manifest divinity through all the works of our everyday life and to love our neighbors as our true self, which is the ultimate freedom. So how do we, right there we have discussed the main purpose of human life. Often we say, well, what are we here for? Is this all there is? I mean, am I supposed to go to work every day? What are we here for? And as Ramakrishna said, to realize God, to realize our own divinity. That's all we're here for. And how uncovering the divinity that is our real self. What stands in the way of this freedom? Well, I think most all of us know the answer. It's called the ego. And I know that we have discussed this ego numerous times. The ego is the whole process of defining yourself as this body, as this mind, as these senses, and attaching the identification to that. Having a sense of I'm me, this is mine, it's not yours, a sense of separation, the whole sense of separateness, which is not divinity. Divinity is oneness. So how do we go about erasing our feeling of separateness? We do have a separate body. We experience it every single day. How do you say this body is the same as your body? Well, it isn't in our perception at this point. If we can erase this feeling of separateness, we all have the same feelings in our bodies. We all experience the same sickness. We experience aging. We experience birth. We experience death. So in that way, we are all one body. We are manifest in different portions of the United States, different portions of the world. We come in different colors. We come in different sizes. But we are basically all we are human. That is our manifestation this time. And that is why we have the rare chance of uncovering our divinity. We have the ability as this human form to do that. And how do we do it? Through the human mind. Our minds are a little less gross than our body. They're a little more subtle. They're a little more fluid. We can see similarities between our differences more easily through our minds, because we can study the same topics, we can discuss things, we can reach points of unity in our discussions. We can have, we all have different opinions, we all have different experiences, and we come into this human birth with these different experiences and with these different samskaras. We have learned these things in our past lives and our past experiences. We come in with them. Now we have to then look at what we have come in with and how we are reacting to other beings that we run into. What is it that keeps us separate and thinking that, well, they don't feel the same way about, the worst one right now is politics. They don't feel the same way about COVID. They don't feel the same way about, they're worshiping God in a different way. But are we really? Are we really? We all have sort of the same fears. We have the same anxieties. We come from different backgrounds. If we can discuss these things without getting too emotional about it, then we can find our common ground. And our common ground is the fact that we are all divine within. The Atman is the same. The Atman is Brahman, it is the same. When we can recognize that, then the ego will be scared to death. Because that ego really wants to keep attached. It wants to be here. It has a great reason for being here and keeping itself. It's terrified that we're going to realize our divinity and let it go. We have spent, in each life that we have, we spend the first easily 10 years building up our egos, identifying ourselves. I am Krishnaprana. I am so many years old, I'm not going to tell you. I was born in the United States. So, but we have all of these things that we have solidified as our ego. Children don't really notice too much. They're just kind of are. When you see babies and 2-year-olds, they're not that, they don't have that strong sense of separate identity. Round 2 and 3, they start to get it. This is mine, and I'm not sharing it with you. But it takes a great deal of effort to look at these things in ourselves and see that it's that terrible sense of separateness that makes us afraid, makes us anxious, makes us happy sometimes. But I think more often it makes us anxious and afraid because we split the world into groups: me, them, us, them, and we create these divisions. Now, these divisions are all really in our minds. We have every opportunity instead to see oneness. With every person that we meet, we can say, yes, well, they may, to all outward appearance, look a little different, but I know that they want the same things I want. I know that they have the same wants in life. They have the same problems with their families. They have the same, they're working. They all all of us share all of these things. We share our desires, we share our goals in life, and we tend to pursue them in different ways. But as one of the, I think it was in the gospel, he said, even the thief is doing nothing but trying to take care of his family. Even the murderer is seeking the same kind of freedom and happiness that we do, and we seek it in a different way. But the impetus and the desire is the same. They want to take care of their families, they want to take care of themselves, they're afraid. When we can get over defining ourselves as separate from everyone, it's very difficult right now in Los Angeles. I don't know how it is in other cities, but in Los Angeles, you drive down the freeway and the tent cities are over every overpass. They're in every underpass. And there's tent cities with the homeless all there. And many people are afraid because, yes, there is a possibility that some are on drugs, some are have mental illness, and there is the possibility at all times that you are not physically safe. However, when I don't know that any of you, some of you will have known Shiva Maharaj, who was a monk in Hollywood. And Shiva was a bit of an eccentric. He was his own person. This was something I found out at his memorial that I had no idea, and I've known him for 50 years. He used to wake people up wake up one man who could drive him. Shiva was not allowed to drive because when he first came to the society, he went to drive somewhere and he closed his eyes so he would think of Brahman all the time. Well, you can't drive with your eyes shut, and there's no way. So Swami Prabhupada said, Shiva, you don't drive, okay? Now, he was brilliant, and he knew the Bible backwards and forwards. He was brilliant, and he was a real sannyasin. He would wake up one of the men who lived in the monastery, not a monk, but a dedicated soul, and say, come on, we have to drive down to such and such a corner. There's someone in trouble. And he would get Mark to drive him down there. And he would drag this homeless person that I don't know how he contacted Shiva. I don't know how those details, but he would take him to a motel, put him in the motel for the night, and do what he could to take care of him. Shiva had been coming home to Hollywood one night when he was mugged by a couple of people that wanted to rob him. Now, he truly did not react as if they were robbing him. He said, brother, I have no money, but what I have is yours. Brother, you have everything, take it all. Well, they beat him up really badly. And he never once felt, he said, he never once felt that it was separate from him. It was he himself who was, it was an experience, that's all it was. Could we all do that? I don't know. It's like the story in the gospel where the monk is beaten up and left for dead, and his brothers come and find him, and they put a little milk in. Who beat you up? He that is giving me milk. Where we can see the sameness. This is the erasing our ego. This is a high level of erasing the ego. How do we start? Well, we start taking, as they say, baby steps. We start by consciously looking at people that we meet and looking at them and hearing them, actually listening to them, listening to ourselves on how we react to them. That's the hardest part. Most of us can listen to someone. However, what happens is as we listen, often our emotions cloud our hearing. If someone brings up a topic that, like you say, but politics is one of the biggest ones. They bring up a political statement that is opposite of your own. And what generally happens is our emotions take over. And we stop hearing. We've gone into our own, this is what I believe and that's it. And we see it on television all the time. If people could honestly sit down and listen, they tried it in South Africa after the partition was over and Mandela got out of prison and was the president. They had the reconciliation meetings. And these were people who were honestly trying to understand both sides. And they found that it helped a great deal to listen and say their truth, but find out motivation and why people did things and where they were coming from. Now, as I understand, it's not so reconciled now. It's starting to come up again. But that's also human nature because we do experience separateness. It takes a great deal of effort, conscious effort, to try to experience unity and oneness. And I think the reason it takes such an effort is because once we do that, we have realized God. Unity is the realization of God. To know that, to experience it, to live it every single day. To not see these separations. That is realization of God because you're living then in Brahman. You don't see you don't feel separate. Your ego has vanished. And that is why it is so difficult. And the reason we're not free. I mean, if we can experience that oneness, we don't have any anxieties because what's there to be anxious about? We don't have any fear because we'd only fear ourselves. And our true self is not fearful. It's blissful. It's knowledge of everything. So, as I say, it's not easy, but it is simple. Ramakrishna in the gospel, you read it practically every other page. Think of God, yearn for God. And I don't care whether you call it God, whether you call it knowledge, whatever you call it, whatever your idea of the infinite is. It's easier right now to think of it as God or to think of it as whoever it is that you feel is the best manifestation of that love, knowledge, and bliss. Going to the Krishna Consciousness Temple today, you can see this is their choice, and they do it beautifully. It's beautifully done. They're sincere and dedicated. You go to a Christian church or a Catholic church and you see the people who are dedicated and truly pursuing their internal life, dedicating their lives to their idea of God. Seeing the kindness that they show other people, seeing the help that they give other people. Because that is the other aspect of seeing unity, is getting over selfishness, getting over thinking of yourself before you think of everyone else. Looking outside and seeing the inside. if that makes sense. There was someone who said, people enter a room in two different ways. If people are going into a party, there is the person who comes, here I am. And then there's the person who goes, there you are. Now, which one is seeing the unity more? The person who thinks of the other person first. Ah, there you are. I'm so glad to see you. It's not the person who goes, here I am. I'm here. But those are easy ones to practice in everyday life. That's a small start. Walking into a room and thinking, oh, so-and-so, so-and-so, so, and you're all here and it's very nice and it's wonderful. And I'm really glad to see you. I'm glad that you're all here. I mean, I look at these Zoom things and I'm kind of, yep, okay, I know that person and I know that person. And it's nice to see everyone. And this is the good thing about Zoom that I think, that we get to see people from all over the country. And we get to see people from all over, sometimes the world, and get to know them. And that's one of the good things that came out of isolation. Everyone that has attended any of our meetings where it's in the convent have gotten to know my cats too, because they walk across the keyboard all the time and there they are, and okay, this is what life is really about in our place. But always trying to always think of others before yourself. How to make life sometimes easier, unselfish thoughts. And how do we increase our identity to include the world? Our first identity is me. This is me. Then we have an identity. I live in such and such a city. Well, before that we have, and this is my family. This is my family. I have a husband, I have a wife, I have 3 children. These are my grandparents. And we're very identified with them and protective of them. Then we go into, this is my city or my neighborhood. And this is where my identity is. Or this is my college football team. I have friends who are still identifying with their college football teams. And believe me, it was a long time ago. But we superimpose these as our identity. Then we go on to, well, I'm a Californian. I'm a Californian visiting Pennsylvania right now. Then we get into, well, I'm an American citizen. And in one way, this is increasing our identification, which includes a huge group of humanity that we feel is the same as us. And then you go on, well, I'm a Vedantist. Well, that includes people all over the world. And you can go anywhere in the world and be at home because you go to a Vedanta society, you go to a Ramakrishna modern mission, and you are welcomed immediately. So you have now increased your identity to include people all over the world. Then you go into, you can increase it even more. I can go into, I notice, I am still here. I can go into any church and feel very, very comfortable because they too are worshiping God. And I can be anywhere and feel this feeling of God worship. Well, then you've increased your identity. You have included way beyond this little body and mind. And that is reaching towards unselfishness. The more you identify with the entire world and all of humanity, the closer you're becoming to oneness and unity and divinity. Because if you can see that divinity in them, and you can know that everyone is basically worshiping the same idea, and they're calling it various names. I remember I just read in the Eternal Companion, and Maharaj said, to try to define the infinite is a fool's task. You must experience it. We can sit and talk and try and define what the infinite is, what Brahman is. It's completely indefinable with human words, because every single word restricts it. And we can't be free until we experience it. Ramakrishna says over and over in the gospel, this world can be a mansion of mirth once you know God. It's not saying sure, as long as we have a human form, we're going to experience Maya, but we can cut that wall which separates Maya from Brahman. As the direct disciples, Swami Brahmananda said it perfectly, show me the line of demarcation where matter ends and spirit begins. When you have those experiences, and you have to work hard. You work hard to have those experiences. You work hard, you meditate, you direct your whole mind to God realization. Now that doesn't mean, as they also have said in the gospel, put 3/4 of your mind, 8/10 of your mind on God, and you can easily do the work that you need to do in the world with that 2/10 or that 1/4 of your mind. Because you just can. Time has no meaning, really. You can accomplish everything as long as your entire mind is in God. Then you're not saying, I have to do it. It's up to me. When you take back all of that, then you have increased you've tried to make yourself as important as the Lord. To put it bluntly, you're taking responsibility, and we all know we can't really do anything without the Lord. We're little machines that God is moving around and manipulating. We can't do anything without that divine impetus. We can't do anything without the divine in us. But the more we try and say it's, I'm doing it, the harder our life gets, and we are so far from freedom. We have to yearn for God. We have to think of God. We have to put our entire mind there. And yes, you can still, clean the floor. I was talking, the Buddhists have the best titles for books. After the ecstasy, the laundry. These are not contradictory. Another title in one of their books, what happens when the chocolate runs out? I mean, this is what life is about. We focus on God. Yes, we focus, we do everything we can. We try and make the divine the entire focus, but we still have to take care of the daily details. They can't become our entire focus. If we change the daily details to our entire focus, and life will not go on unless I do this. We won't have freedom or happiness. Yes, we have duties and we have things that must be taken care of. But you can take care of all of those things and still think of God. We really can. So to me, that is what freedom is and why I'm not free. Because what keeps us from it? Desires. We have wants. We have desires that we think are important. We think they're important. I would like to go to Australia. What does that have to do with God? That is a desire. That's plain and simple. Oh, I haven't, this is the kind of desire we have. Oh, I'd like to cook this for so-and-so. That's a desire for myself. It's an unselfish desire, but it's still a desire that I want to do. If we read Karma Yoga, we can see that desires can be ameliorated if we give up our attachment to results. I remember when I first encountered Swami Prabhupada, I said, we all define ourselves, right? And I told him, I think Karma Yoga is the one for me. And he looked at me and he said, oh, very difficult. Very difficult. You've picked the hardest one. And I went, no, it's the easiest one. I mean, all I have to do is work, and work is easy. And he said, but you have to give up attachment to praise, and you have to give up attachment to blame, and you cannot be attached to anyone reacting to what you've done. You have to do it and drop it. And I thought, well, that's not that hard. Well, has anyone tried to not get upset when someone is really angry about something you've done? Especially when you're young. Have you tried not to puff up with pride when they're very happy and they say, oh, you've done such a beautiful job? And I mean, it can be even about unselfish things that you're doing. One of the worst traps is becoming charitable. I'm going to do good works. Oh, and I get so much praise for doing it. We've been feeding the homeless for 32 years. Everyone says, your meals are the best. Now, puff up with pride. If you decide to take that praise, yes, all it is an ego builder. That's it. You think you're doing something very good. I'm feeding the homeless. Notice how that sentence went. I'm feeding the homeless. It's not, the Lord has given me this chance to serve. And we have to rearrange our thinking process. We have to realize that we're put here to serve the Lord. And as long as we can keep that idea that we are serving the Lord, we're not doing things for people. We are given the opportunity to serve God in that form. We are given the opportunity, and it's our blessing to be able to work. Now, and I thought Karma Yoga was the easiest one. Swami used to tell me, he said, praise and blame, two sides of the same coin. If you accept one, you have to accept the other. If you react to one, you will react to the other. And it takes, I still don't have that one down completely, but I work on it all the time. Yes, there will still be times when I'm, They shouldn't have been angry about that thing. I was doing a pretty good job. We all have that. That's human nature. And we all have egos, or we wouldn't be here. We all still have desires. We all still have, they may be subtle desires, but that's why we're here. If we can give up all of our desire for ego desires, we would have realized God. It's that simple. It really is simple. Ramakrishna said, religion is simple, God is simple. We complicate it. Because we complicate it with our egos, with our desires. I remember, all you have to do is yearn for God, and God will come running. But how many of us yearn? How many of us get distracted? Oh, watch a little TV. Oh, I like to read. I'll read this book. It's really interesting. Did you see on television this wonderful program? And it was very enlightening. Well, they're all distractions. Our minds have to stay busy, we think, and it's good. But we have to see God behind all of these things. I remember when I was sitting with Bharat Maharaj in India, and I was in his office. He was the manager of Bellarmine at that time. And it was hot. Oh, it was so hot. It was 100 degrees, 100% humidity every night. And he had music playing all the time. And he said he had broken English. He would have been president of the order, but his English wasn't quite up to snuff. And he said, "What do you think of the music?" And I said, "Well, it sounds like Indian movie music." And he said, "It is." And I said, "It's Indian movie music?" And he said, "Yes." He said, all songs are songs to God, if that's where your mind is. And of course, I was still singing 60s rock and roll and that kind of thing. And I thought, actually, they are, even all the love songs, if you put them to say God is the subject, then yes, all songs are to God. And I thought, that's an interesting way of looking at the world. You don't have to create these things. This is spiritual and this is worldly. Because it's not outside, it's all in here. It's completely in here on whether it's spiritual or worldly. And that's something that we can work on controlling, is our own mind and our own attitudes. And that's the only thing that will give us freedom. It is the only thing that will give us the ultimate freedom, is working on that mind until we transcend it and have the knowledge of God. There are certain things that keep us from doing that, and we'll discuss some of them tomorrow night. We won't discuss them tonight because I don't have anything to talk about tomorrow night. But we can think of Krishna's definition of what our mind really is like. The wild horses that need to be brought under control, running wild, and we have the reins, we have the monkey. Anyway, we'll talk about that. What are these reins that we have? You can all read up on it in the Gita, and you'll have it down better than I do. But we only have our minds to deal with. And I think this is also one of the benefits, I think, of COVID. I've been trying to think of all the things to be thankful for being isolated, which we're not in California too much. As I say, we're more than lucky. We have wonderful weather. We can be outside every day. We can be relatively free physically, and in that way, we can lead a more normal life than people who have weather. We would like some weather, we would like some rain, but it's okay. But one of the benefits, I think, is that in our isolation and less contact with people, less distractions, we've had more time to look at ourselves and go inside rather than outside. Because our normal life is projecting outside. We look outside, we think of things, we keep ourselves busy. That's part of our I used to say the national personality. I mean, even Swamiji saw it. He said, the Western Americans are busy. They work all the time. They improve everything, but it's externalized. And he said, if we could have the ideal person, if we could have the energy and work of the West combined with the interior life and spirituality of the East. Okay. So I immediately meant, okay, that's what Vedanta is doing. Because we're both working together and meeting in places where we can improve each other. And to me, that would be the ideal. Keep working, keep helping society, but at the same time, go inside. This is what will lead us to freedom. I think COVID has been a big boon for us. The people that I've talked to in Santa Barbara, they say, oh, well, I've gotten to know my family better. The kids are all being homeschooled for 1.5 years, which practically killed the parents, but that's okay. They got to know their children really well. And they started having much more family activities. They said, well, it's really been good because we've gotten so much closer and we know each other and we do things together because you can't do them with your friends. So they were thinking of more family activities. Then you increase like I was saying earlier, you increase your little pod. We call them pods because we have, anyway. We called them pods in Santa Barbara because when we had the fire, we all had to go evacuate and we were in little groups. Then we had the flood and we were isolated and we had 6 people that we were with all the time and we called it the pod. And when we finally got to get off the hill, the pod went down to a restaurant. Yeah. We all carried our driver's license. Yes, we live right here. We want to get back, okay? I mean, so we called them pods. And people increased their little pod. And now we're fairly opened up. But we've lost a lot of local businesses, which makes us sad. So we're reorienting our lives to helping local businesses because we want life to go on normally. And we want our people to be able to live in this gorgeous place we live in. We have wonderful weather. We don't have rain. Swami Triyananda said, if you want sunshine all the time, you'll get a desert. which is what we're getting. Our desires do, I mean, what we want, the Lord will provide if we want it badly enough. And the Lord will come if we want the Lord badly enough. But we do have to look inside. And we have to look at our own minds and see what our motivations are, what our real desire is behind every action that we do. We have to do that. And that's the most, I think, one of the most difficult things to do is to look completely honestly at your own self. As someone said, we're very good at rationalizing our own behavior. Extremely good at rationalizing our own behavior. We can, they meant something. Now I can say the same thing, but I had no motivation behind. I was just being honest. We're very good at that kind of rationalization. We look at ourselves and we give ourselves every benefit of the doubt. We know we didn't mean something. I read it. I pick up little quotes here and there, and I read one that said, "I'm not arguing. I'm just telling you why I'm right." I mean, that's the kind of rationalization we can do. I'm not arguing with you. I'm just letting you know why I'm right. These are the kinds of things that we have to look at and be honest. Am I? Yeah, I am right. I'm going to tell them that and make them believe it. But I've seen other people who just go, that's what you think, and I think this. And we both have our own thought. We don't have to make everyone believe what we believe. We can allow differences and still be loving and kind to each other. So you say, agree to disagree. Or in the Vedantic sense, unity in diversity. It means it's not accepting diversities, it's recognizing them. Because acceptance also, in one way, assumes a position of superiority. If I accept you, then I have put myself in a position of, or if I allow you to think in that way. This is the kind of motivations we have, real emotions we have to think about if we're analyzing ourselves and using discrimination. Not a comfortable way of doing it. It's more in the Jnana Yoga method of really looking at your mind, which is not the easy way to realize God. Loving God is the easy way. Letting your emotions, actually loving people just because they're people and they are manifestations of God. That's a way easier way to do. Karma Yoga is not that easy either. And not so easy to let go of your attachments. But I think speaking for myself in the Ramakrishna order, we have a balance of all four. And that, I believe, creates a more integrated person. When you look at your mind, you do your karma yoga, you accept, you love God, and you do your meditation. And that's one of the easiest ways. Meditation and japa are the easiest ways to change your whole mindset. If you've got a mantra, keep that going in your mind all the time, then you don't forget God. Every time you have a thought that comes up that is counterproductive or disturbing, replace it with your mantra. It gives a great deal of peace in your own life, and it focuses your mind. And in focusing your mind, you have a great deal of, that's the beginning of freedom. And any of you who have gone to school, or any artist, or any person who's done advanced studies, has learned already how to focus. Otherwise, you would not be able to do what you're doing. That ability to focus serves you in good stead in turning to religion, because you have already trained your mind in one area. Now just change the focus of that training. Turn the focused mind to God. And you'll get there so much faster than people who have minds that are like mustard seeds scattered all over the world. Or mercury, that was the one, or herding cats. I have met people who cannot focus. They're distracted instantly by anything. That's a very difficult mind to gather in, but it too can be channeled to loving God. Because in loving God, you can think of so many other things. You can think of how you would treat God, how you would do this, how you would decorate, how you would, if you have a shrine, how you would decorate the shrine, how you would feed the Lord. And you can move from topic to topic to topic, and you're still thinking only of God. So there's so many ways to approach this, approach the realization of God. And all you have to do is find one or combine them all, because the only thing we have to do is think of God and want God as our main ideal of life. Every teaching that we have does nothing but tell you, yearn for God. You read the Katha Upanishad, choose between the good and the pleasant. Everything that leads you towards God is the good. The pleasant are the distractions. But every single scripture, every single book we read, the Gospel of Ramakrishna, the Eternal Companion, the Gita, they all say, yearn for God and you will get God. Now, that's why they say religion is simple. God is simple. It is, but we distract ourselves. My favorite, I have a bit of a death poem by a Zen monk is, barefoot I entered, empty-handed I left. Two simple events that got complicated. And to me, that says it all. We got born, we're going to die. And what happened in between was a complication. We have to simplify that complication and direct it and realize our own divinity, because that's what we are. It's not searching for anything that's outside ourselves. It's looking deeply within and seeing your real self. And I had found a quote, once again, to end this talk, because in case people don't know, I get tired of talking and I go, okay, that's enough. And I do. Yep, Vedanta again. So I'm going to end with this quote today. practical use of philosophy consists in the knowledge of our own true nature. It teaches us what we are, why we have come into this world, the purpose of life, and how to fulfill that purpose, and how we can live as master and not as slaves. Yeah, okay. Be sincere in your practice, words and deeds. God wants sincerity, truthfulness, and love. Outward verbal effusions don't touch God. So we just have to really put everything we know in practice. And now,